everybody, I'm actually here today. It's your boy Stargazer718, and I'm doing something rather different this time. Like I said, I've always wanted to go back to doing some tutorial videos. Well, this time I'm doing a video tutorial on Fortnite. This is a game I thought I would never actually do a tutorial on. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Okay, so this is defensive tactics, things that I have found rather useful in my time doing during my time playing Fortnite. I've been playing since season 4, and these are a couple of things that I've picked up watching players or kind of figuring out on my own. Okay, so when I first started playing, the big buzz way back when was, of course, the tower build. Around season 5 or 6, I noticed that a lot of people were doing a tower build tactics, and also people were also starting to modify the controls a little bit, which you can modify your controls to your liking and to your suit. So you actually simply go to the settings in here, and you actually go to the control options, and there's a variety of things that you can do with the control options. For example, auto run, build immediately, pro builder. These are options that you really should put into consideration. Also, you have to think about. You also have to play with it for a little while. They do seem to change it up a little bit once in a while. With the recent update and with the new season and new chapter coming around, they have changed the options quite a bit. So it's always good per season, if you can, to kind of go over the settings, make sure everything is right and such like that, and everything's to your liking. There's a couple of ways you can actually build. There's still the usual couple of options that they have: old school, quick builder, combat builder, builder pro, and there's actually a whole custom. I actually use the builder pro personally, but why don't you go ahead and still mess about with that. Now, there are two options you really have to put into consideration as a beginner. If you're a beginner, or you're just like me who just kind of plays just because I can, not really trying to get into the pro spot just yet, I would recommend you really focus on using the combat and build controls. You really have to be customizing and also messing around with that. Also, you'll have to also mess with the sensitivity. Sensitivity goes a long ways in this game, most definitely. Okay, so how about we give the settings a bit of a break here, and like I said, I am using the pro builder option tactic. This is actually a recommended recommended setting. Even if you're a starter, it might seem a little bit confusing, but the tactic that the default setting that they will have for you is where you would actually have to select the structure that you need manually with the D-pad. So they would more than likely have you set to old school, and old school building is rather a slow way to build. So we're actually going to go ahead and go to the slow builder, and like I said, they'll more than likely have you in this setting. And with this particular setting, you have to scroll through your parts. Like I said, it's more of a manual sort of deal. If you're comfortable with this at first, it is a good idea to start with this, but there might come a time where you might notice that you're kind of getting a little bit faster with it. So what you might want to actually do is go ahead and skip. I would have to go with pro builder. Combat builder is a little bit of the same thing, except you're using the L1 R1 to kind of cycle through. Personally, I don't see how this is a combat builder, because this is a rather slow combination, but you know what, that's just me. There's other ways you can do. You can customize the layout differently, and you can do all kinds of stuff to really mess with the building. The building in this game is rather key for us, for new people or just people trying to fit in. And then there's also the quick builder, and quick builder is another type. It still does the same thing, as the combat builder, as you may notice, I'm still having to use the L1 R1 to cycle through the parts that I want. Also, so there's a lot of things that are put into consideration, but each one has their own major difference. But my personal favorite is, however, the Pro Builder. Pro Builder is pretty much recommended once you find yourself, like if you're playing in a certain style where you find yourself building more and more every time you play, then this is definitely the style that you want. The problem, there's only one problem really with this particular technique, is the fact that once you press the button, it is going to be set. You won't have time to select it and then look how it's going to turn out. It is an instantaneous build, as you can see here. Okay. Now, one thing about this particular building technique is that it's very handy and it's very fast, and I highly recommend it to anyone who, like I said, if you find yourself probably doing more building than shooting than usual, then I would definitely recommend doing this particular tactic. This tactic is very adaptable to most of the material. What I mean by that is that with the metal material, it's the longest to set up versus the wooden material. Wooden material may be fast to set up, but it actually doesn't take as much to bring down. And the stone, as you can see with the HPs do go up. Here's 150 here, 300, and then finally 500 for the metal. But the metal does take the slowest. And then also brick is kind of like your moderate speed, so you'll still get it up. It is actually a good idea though to try to start out with your metal if you can. If you can start out with metal, and then when it comes to more urgent cases, go ahead and get down to the other material. Another tip though is that the fact that once you are out of a certain material, the settings will automatically go to the next material that you have available. So if you are starting here and say you've run out of metal, it will either scroll to stone or wood. So keep that in mind. That way you don't have to panic about, oh, you're out of this particular material and you have to scroll through. You will not actually have to scroll through once you're out of a particular material. It will automatically scroll for you. Okay, so when I first started playing, the biggest buzz right now was like people able to build a little tower for themselves instantaneously. This particular tactic is rather easy once you get into it. The thing about building fast is being able to look fast. What I mean by that is that if we go into the settings here, you can actually adjust between aiming and building sensitivity, look sensitivity. This is something that you really should take into consideration. The faster you're able to look in the direction you want to build, the faster you'll be able to build. So as long as your look, it's more of like your look and reaction time. That's really the trick. I mean, it may not be the trick, but it is certainly a helpful tip to be able to withstand some of the more aggressive players. If you're able to react and build instantly, or at least look as fast as you can in the direction or surrounding direction that you are getting hit from, then I highly recommend that you really do mess with the build mode sensitivity multiplier. And there is also a aiming sensitivity multiplier you can also mess with as well. And there's also a here's the edit mode multiplier as well. So these particular things you really have to mess with. One recommendation that I do have is that you should have your look sensitivity and your aim sensitivity lower than your building sensitivity, because of course when you're building and if you're in close quarters combat, you are going to be probably more than likely more focused on the person's movements already, right? So you might as well have your aim sensitivity lower than your build sensitivity. That way once you do get out of build, and if you're already looking dead center at them, more than likely you'll be able to get at least one pick off them and then rotate back into build and start building again. So why don't I give you a demonstration on the faster that you look, the more reaction time you're going to have. So I'll tell you this for sure, that the most commonly built, the most commonly structures that you will have to use are definitely going to be the wall and ramps. And with this particular build, I have been able to kind of adapt to it. This one, you will need walls, a ramp, and you'll also need flooring. Not as much as a roof. So the first step to this one, when it comes to building the tower, what tends to sometimes happen is that people are looking either too high or too low or just right. Notice how if I'm looking like this, the wall will be all the way forward in front of me. However, if I look slightly down, if you look at the ground ever so slightly, most chances are you will be able to get this particular result. So you will have to be moving when you're making this particular structure. Okay? Because whichever side you're on closest, you will have to probably do a little movement. See, because if I just stand here and I try to do that, see what happens? Okay, so what you really have to pay attention doing, say if you're getting shot, you look down and you can pretty much spin. Now this will send some walls flying outwards, but it will kind of make the enemy hesitate as to what kind of person you are. So say if you're in the middle of running, someone is shooting. Now you can just go ahead and do that little spam build right here. And then as things kind of start to calm down, the person isn't shooting so much. Even if they are shooting much, you really do need to get a beat on them. Once things kind of start to calm down, go ahead and build yourself a ramp. And go ahead and also make a flooring. Now, this makes the tower a little bit easier. Now that you got the flooring in place, it's going to be a lot easier to do your walls, as you can see. Okay, and then you can just hop and make your ramp. And I'm literally just looking down on the floor that I just made. So why don't we make a ramp? I'll make my floor. And take a look. If you look closely though, all I'm doing is pretty much looking at the floor. And I'm just looking and I'm pulling the trigger. That's all I'm doing. That's all you really have to do. Okay? And there's the tower structure right here. Now this structure is rather risky. It is best if you can to try to have it with metal material. Yes, it will take longer, but you will have it still. And you can do the same thing, but it will take longer for it to get to the max HP. People can, however, take advantage while your structure is in the middle of building. Now, since it's taking so long to get going, people can actually take advantage of this and cut off the momentum of the build. Now, I'm actually going to go ahead and I'll show you what I mean by that. So we're just going to take pretty much an average gun that you may or may not come across. Why don't we go with a assault rifle blue? Let me just clear out my inventory here. Well, see, averagely you will come across a I'm going to throw this all the way out there. Oh, cool. So real quick, we're going to actually test to see what happens when you do build something. People are able to actually cut you off. No more than 7 bullets for that. Okay. Now we're going to also take a look at the wood. Now wood, like I said, it may be lower HP, but it is faster. However, it can be brought down easy. For those 2 pieces, I only wasted about 12. Okay. So, and then stone is just one of those just right ones. So for people who are just trying to get into the game to do the challenges or whatever, these are just basic tactics that I'm showing to kind of help you along to try to get to be able to get your challenges done. So we've gone over the basic tower build, and why don't I go ahead and just make the tower build for this. So if you want it real close to you though, however, the problem with doing it real close the first time is that you have to be constantly moving. So you have to be constantly moving. And then when it comes time to do the ramp, then you can actually start looking a little bit lower and then start to build upwards. But again, the problem with this particular tactic though is the fact that someone can easily get down below you and just start wrecking your tower. Okay, and at that point you might as well have try doing the drop and stop sort of tactics where you drop down and you have a ramp ready right here and you're able to catch yourself. Now they'll more than likely see you coming, so you might as well go ahead and do a partial tower and cut them off from wherever they're at. Now I'm not saying these tactics are foolproof, but these are just a couple of things that I've seen other players and what I have found rather handy to do in in certain situations. And you know, I'm actually happy that I did this. Why don't we actually go ahead and get another piece of equipment out here? Okay, now one thing that definitely kind of gets people off guard is where to build. Now there are certain places where you can and where you cannot build, where you can't build over something or under something. So take note though that most of the plant structures that are in the map you can actually build over, and you're still able to do your tower prep, okay, even with all the interference. But the problem in some places though, nowadays especially, I don't know if this is some sort of new update, is that you actually cannot build in most of the areas because it will interfere with you. And since this is creative mode, we won't actually get that effect. But if you're in a live match, structures will actually interfere with your building. Okay, so some of the other things, so we're going to actually see also you should always try to utilize the environment to your advantage. Now I'm not saying that there will be areas completely packed like this. I'm just using this as an example. Now, if I was an enemy here and I start doing a tower structure, people are going to notice that. So if you're going to do a tower structure, make sure you're using the right material, because people will notice this from the midst of, you know, certain greenery. Now, the current map right now doesn't have a whole lot of places where you have to worry about disturbing the green. Then again, I haven't personally fully explored this, but definitely in the original map you're able to definitely exploit and really mess with the environment with your building, and people would see that, okay, whether they see a structure is blowing up or something like that. There's just a lot there. Now, some of the problematic things about building is pretty much when you're in a building. Why don't we take a common building such as a house? Let me see if I can find ourselves a house here. Because with some of the houses in Fortnite, oh, here we go. Give it some time to load. I can't necessarily say this is a current house in the game, but as an example, we'll use it. Okay, so there's a couple of problems that you may come across when you're in a house. If this was a live game, there would be some spots where you actually cannot build. And I do mean you cannot build. We're actually seeing an example right now. Anytime you see the arrow pointing down and it's red, it means you cannot build. Okay. Definitely one other spot that's definitely problematic for building is the roof. The roof is probably one of the most problematic places to build. Okay. You can build in some parts, but you can't build in every part of it unless you do some destruction and repair. So here we have it to where we can't build here. Okay. Now I can build there. So with some of the houses and some other structures that you may notice are actually you're able to deconstruct, you'll have to do that before you're able to actually build something. This particular feature I would advise to avoid as much as you can. If, however, you are in confrontation and you are on the roof, try to get to a certain point on the roof. As you may notice, there's actually some spots in between the roofs here that you can actually build a structure and go ahead and tower build. Once you've already gotten your tower built up already, then you can go ahead and start targeting the adversary. However, there is a problem at this rate. You see, since this is a standalone tower, just like every other tower, even though you're in a house, they can still target your built-up structure, knowing that they cannot actually target the house. The house has way more HP than any of your structures put together. Now, there is also another building technique that I've also noticed being brought into the light here. It's a technique that I have yet to get down myself. You actually have to do it. It's rather a complex build. You here, ramp, floor, wall, ramp, floor, wall. Whoops. See, I don't even have it down either. So floor, keep doing the ramp, because that's just natural. See, I've done the basic for so long that I can't seem to get myself to do the other way. But this is actually the real hot spot of building a ramp. This is the good stuff right here. So it's floor, wall, ramp, floor, wall. See, again. So that probably means I have to change my input. You can actually change your input settings. So say you're doing something constantly, you can go ahead and make a customary button array. Okay. So, okay, everything's like down sights, alright. So that's combat control. So let's go to build control. So stairs are R1. Do we really want stairs in R1? Well, why don't we have, why don't we have the wall here? And then, why don't we go all the way over here? And then we finally have the stairs, okay? So it would be floor, wall, ramp, floor, wall, ramp, floor, wall, ramp, floor, wall, ramp. Okay? So there we go. That is the new hotspot. That is the new tactic for the for making a proper ramp, because it's very easy just to do this, maybe add a floor to do a little bit of a turnaround. But you see, all someone really has to do is just see that. Now, a thing about the floor, about the tower, is that as great as it is, there's still a couple of problems that you may come across. So why don't we get the weapons that are going to be rather problematic for the tower building? Let's go with the rocket launcher. And we're also going to have who else? You know, we'll just stick with the rocket launcher at first. Okay. Let me actually grab some more. Okay. So here we have for the wood. That would happen. Then all someone would really have to do is either switch over, use an assault, or just do it again. Okay. Now, pretty much the same result. Difference, huh? So that's why you, if you can, try to start with metal as your go-to resource when you're doing the tower build. Because they may or may not have to take 1 or 2 shots at you. But there is a bit of a problem though. You still have to worry about the gold. Okay, so we're going to go over here. Actually, we're going to build. We're going to go ahead and... Whoops. See, I've gotten so used to my settings being the other way. Hold on. Okay. Alright, I think that's good enough. Alright, so this is the gold. Test. Okay. Very interesting. Not much of a difference, is there? Okay. Here's stone. It would help if I have one that's loaded. Okay. Pretty much the same result. Very interesting. Okay. It is very interesting to see this. But then again, chances of you able to build the structure entirely without any interference is rather low, because sometimes you'll get those matches where people see you build, they'll be targeting you instantly because they know that you're an aggressive type of person. Okay. So we're going to go up here. Whoop. That happens. Sometimes what will happen is that if your head isn't entirely up, then you'll actually hit the wall. Okay, so we're going to drop down here. Here's the gold gun. So as you can see, the metal definitely does resist. But again, someone can either come up with something different or a different gun entirely and just kind of take you down. So what I have to say for the beginners, if you can, try to make it to where if you're the type just to do challenges, just get to the challenge location. If you come across trouble, kind of just do the tower build to maybe scare off the person, because maybe you came across a noob. It's hard to say. But if it is someone who, you know, knows how to play, then you know, see if you can give them a fight if you can. You don't always have to run away from someone who you see building and you know, they're rather impressive with the building. Okay, so that's pretty much it with this video on basic tactics and defensive tactics on what you can do when you're doing a challenge. I hope this does help people, players who've never played Fortnite, who want to, but mostly just want to play it just to play it. These are things that you will be coming across. If I have to say so myself, these will be the type of structures you'll be coming across. The basic ramp versus the more advanced pro ramp. The tower building. Definitely come into creator mode if you can, whenever you can. And try to practice some of these little tactics that I showed everybody. Can't even talk today. Okay, kind of experiment also with the controls. The controls are very important to experiment with. And hopefully you all are having a wonderful day. Please drop a like and subscribe. Also, catch up with any of my other videos. I will be doing more tutorials later in the future on different games. Please also send a request on a tutorial that you would like to see me do on any kind of game that you think would be best. Anyways, I hope you all are having a wonderful day. Also stay tuned, because there may or may not be any more. There may be more videos that I have, whether it be Fortnite or just tutorial in general. Thanks, guys.